Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Guglielmo Venturoli. I'm an instructional designer and I am the head of the Design and Development and Multimedia Production of degree courses in Università Telematica Guglielmo Marconi. Today I would like to show you some examples of our multimedia products that could be considered as a possible interpretation of the concept of simulation. I'll make a very quick introduction, then I will show you the 3 examples I chose for you, and after all, finally, the very quick conclusion. Università Telematica Guglielmo Marconi multimedia training courses pay always a great attention to multimedia learning in its cognitive, emotional, metacognitive, motivational components. Using theoretical models from which there are more variables that can merge together in a mutual relationship. Case studies, role-playing, and simulated representation of reality could be experimental multimedia products developed by Marconi that have implicitly and sometimes unconsciously altered theories and models. As a result, there has been a development of creative designs through the activation of motivation and the strengthening of the new semantic section and new semantic meanings among the multimedia productions. Marconi's permanent willingness is the need to move from a situation of traditional learning, which is linear, which is typically more stable and planned, to a situation of online learning, which is by its nature more volatile, but probably more adequate to promote the content with all the new opportunities given by new technological tools. This is the first example I would like to show you. This is a case study we developed for the criminal procedure of the Faculty of Law. In this, I captured some screenshot because probably there is not enough time to show all the 3 examples. This particular product has been divided into 3 main parts. We decided to use an avatar that represents a virtual tutor, and the first part is the description of the fact. The fact in this case is a quarrel between 2 drivers, and we can see that the avatar with the virtual tutor described in a quite impartial way the quarrel, using photographs. You can see here the photograph that changes and the detailed description about the quarrel between the 2 drivers. The second main part of this course is the most important one, in which the 2 protagonists that are the drivers have the meeting with their lawyers. This is a course for the Faculty of Law, so it's mainly content based on legislations. This is the moment in which the 2 avatars that are the 2 protagonists go to their lawyers, and this is a screenshot in which we can see that the learner can identify the most important legislation references during the dialogue. That means that this is the most important didactic part in which, without the references, the learner couldn't be able to finish the case and to solve the situation. The final and last part of this course is the choice of the procedure that could be interpreted as being better than the others, and the immediate feedback represented by the avatar that in this case is dressed up like a judge. So what can we say about this first example? That the main objective was to simulate through the role-playing and the dialogues between avatars some juridical contents that generally are expressed only by text. During the design phase, we paid very big attention on 3 sources of information, which is the visual, the auditory, and verbal. Taken alone or individually, those three sources of information would not have been as effective as they were in this case. This is a second example, which is very, very different from the first one, that could be also another possible interpretation of the concept of simulation. It's called art and surroundings. It's a multimedia path around the world of art, thought to be a set of possible different educational routes, all characterized by a participatory and flexible nature. The objective was, in this case, to rebuild an ad hoc micro-world able to include, put in the proper context, expand and enhance the training content time after time. This is an example of multimedia products we design and develop for the Faculty of Arts and History. Here is the screenshot. Probably later on I can get into and I can show you in a real way. Try to imagine this is the ideal city, which is the first environment that the learner faces before entering two different micro-worlds associated to this ideal city. I imagine this ideal city is alive, with people moving, with music in the surround and so on. The first one is the exhibition hall, which is this building on the left, and the other one is the pavilion hall, which is the building on the right. Going into those two buildings, the learner can get into two different environments. Other screenshots, this is the exhibition hall, which has been represented by a contemporary art gallery. From this itinerary, the learner can get into three other different micro-worlds that can be represented in this way. The relationship between art and media, the relationship between art and cinema, and the relationship between art and literature. Here is the screenshot, for example, the bigger one. This is, I'd like to show you the graphic choices that have been made. You can see the differences between the graphic that has been chosen for the previous example. This is the exhibition hall. Those three elements are clickable. This is the representation of art and media, art and cinema, and art and literature. This is art and media environment. Each voices here is clickable and let the learner get into other environments to get even more in-depth material, multimedia material. This is art and cinema, and this is art and literature, which is represented by a bookshop. And for example, if we click on the virtual library on the bottom of the bookshop, we can get into what we have called the Gherardini study. Armando Gherardini was an editor, a quite famous Italian editor around 1930. A publisher. We tried to represent as much realistic as much we could his room, and you can see here there are elements like the window, the painting, the library, the radio that are clickable and let the learners get into those in-depth environments. So through the various photo galleries, the study manages to fully express the culture of the context of the period. That's why we tried to be as much realistic as we could. From the urban scenario, which is reachable from the window, that let us go into a photo gallery with all the photographs with audio commentary about the period, about the Rome of the period. The painting on the wall that reminds us of the Roman painting school to that period as well. And for example, if we click on the radio, we can listen to the music we chose Josephine Baker. We can say that it's a multimedia information environment. The objective is to reorient the mix of different linguistic codes, establishing a relationship between qualified hypertextuality and intertextuality. The pavilion hall, which was the building on the left in the ideal city, is another environment that it's like reminds us to the let us go back into the history of art, history of culture, and I put here some screenshot about photo galleries, about the history of silver. Here, the word silver is experienced in a sense. It's important to say that each photo gallery or each environment has been developed using audio comments, movies, videos, photographs, and a very important part, the text, which is introduced in the didactic area of each environment. So the didactic is never missing in every environment of this type. Art and surroundings represent an original fusion of languages and interactions, a continuous exchange of codes like text, images, audio, video, and musical elements that, without disorienting surfing, allows us to keep active attention while interacting into the various environments. In this example, there is no request of interaction, but although there is no request of interaction, it is a reasoned exhibit of information finalized to the acquisition of knowledge. We cannot forget these are academic contexts, so we're just trying to represent them in a different way from the text. It's interesting to understand how technologies have influenced the user through virtual environments, especially constructed where reasoned, pre-organized information and knowledge are available. Later on, I will show you art and surroundings. Now let's go on with the third and final example, which could be considered another interpretation of the concept of simulation. It's a simulated representation of the reality we developed for the School of Specialization in Sciences and Techniques for Support. So other contents, other example, which is very, very different from the previous two examples I showed you before. It's a multimedia schematic version of real situations in which content is transmitted and taken through the use of a virtual learning environment. Here are some screenshots I put here as an example. Even here, the graphic is different because of pedagogical reasons. It's a multidimensional and a multimedia process of learning. As a result, it could be considered as an experiential context that allows the user to discover, to rediscover, to reinvent, and to rebuild concepts, ideas, theories according to an active learning methodology. The simulation, therefore, becomes a terms of exploration and understanding of reality because by simplifying the reality, this is a very important point, the simulation simplifies the reality, but it makes it possible to grasp the really important elements that really matter also from a didactic point of view and their relations. So we really wanted to simplify. So it's merging very, very evident that the concept of simulation is going through the concept of representation. The presentation that must be understood as a schematically simplified view of real environments appropriately represented through the support of additional media, such as, for example, movies. And it is another important point, it's a content figurative representation. We tried to make a figurative representation of the content, of the academic content that is commonly transmitted by text or represented by text. In fact, we have used many conceptual maps and mental maps with audio explanations. Simulated representation of real life situation. This is a screenshot in which you can see the avatar into a real classroom. Interactive exercises with immediate feedback. This is a screenshot I took that represents the experiment of behaviorism, the labyrinth with mouses. Video with a practical perspective, or movies or pieces of films. And in this case in particular, we found many examples of the Piaget theory, the different stages of Piaget. And of course, text. Text is never missing, but has been integrated with different codes in an effective way. These products can be associated with the subsequent development of a planned, which is linear type education, which take into account not only behavioral, but of course, cognitive inspiration. The educational process has tried to conquer all the technological innovations and has tried to exploit their potential. We are trying to mix together new technology tools with the experience of our instructional designer and, of course, the experience of our teachers and professors. So, we found out up to now that audiovisual media successfully integrated with other codes and languages of sensual and perceptual communication, offering a strong example of multimediality and therefore an excellent opportunity for learning. We have to say that the concept of simulation is in theory. Somehow it has been broken into many parts and can be understood under different forms and nuances that vary from a simulated representation of reality to the realization of virtual environments. The fact that the simulation is not the reality, but it represents only a simplified model of the reality is the real strength of the simulation itself. In a sense, we saw it something similar with the presentation of Professor Guglielmo. Sorry. They are, of course, procedural simulation, but in a sense, there are some common emphases. Again, we can say that the three examples about Marconi that I just saw you could be considered on a line of the evolution of the concept of simulation. The first one could be interpreted as the role-playing or case studies. The second one, which is art and surrounding, as a pre-organized knowledge. And the third one, for the School of Specialization, a real interactive learning model. This is the very last part of the presentation. I choose some images from these are paintings from a very famous artist, which is Beaver, Joseph Beaver, if I don't remember. He's very famous because he draws, he makes three-dimensional paintings on the street. This is an example of a 3D, a virtual frog and a child. The frog is virtual and the child is real. This is another example of the 3D butterfly and the real child. And another example, but there are many, of a river in which the artist himself put him into his creation. So what can we say? They could be consistent of an interpretation of the concept of simulation that could be interpreted as a complex knowledge process in continuous evolution where the learner can be totally involved and dive in depth. Okay, now if there is time, I'd like to show you the art and surroundings. Can you listen to the audio? It's in Italian. Okay, so now the learner can choose the pavilion hall or the exhibition hall. Let's start, for example, from the exhibition. This is the Contemporary Art Gallery. This is Art and Media. This is Art and Cinema, Environment. And this is Art and Literature.
Entrando in questo ambiente, potrai accedere con una modalità di navigazione semplice ed agevole ad ambienti virtuali opportunamente selezionati attraverso
He's explaining the environment.
creare percorsi tematici personalizzati.
If we click on the virtual library, we can get into the Gherardini study, as I told you before. We can explore the room, choosing the part we very freely. For example, from the window, there is with the audio comment,
Nel ventennio fascista, l'assetto
there is
urbano
an audio comment of all the images representing the Rome of 1930s, the urban scenario. We can go on. This is the photo gallery. And the audio explanation. Of course, everything is downloadable with text. Another example is painting. We're speaking about the urban scenario. We can speak about the painting school of the period. We chose Donghi, which is an artist of the period, and also in this case there is the audio explanation. We can explore the library in which there are all the published magazines published by Gherardini, and I can also download all the publications, and they are divided into thematic areas, which is theater and other thematics. This is the most important magazine, which is called Occidente. We can listen to the radio, as I told you before, Josephine Baker. And there is also his biography written by the son of Armando Gherardini, and a list of photographs of Mr. Gherardini. If we leave the exhibition area, we can get into the pavilion hall. At the moment we have built the silver area.
Qui potrai accedere con una modalità di navigazione semplice ed agevole ad ambienti virtuali dedicati al mondo degli argenti. Immagini, documenti testuali.
Okay, so the avatar is explaining the same environment. If I click on the window about the silver area, there is the photo gallery with the same logic, the list of all the silver catalogized by period and regional provenience, Europe, Italy, and so on, and the explanation with the audio comment.
In questa gallery sono esposti esemplari dell'argenteria inglese dal Settecento alla fine del Novecento, che ripercorrono i momenti
English and Italian silver about around 18th and 19th century, catalogized but all in these thematic areas, and sacred and profane silver and gold. Degli argenti sacri.
Benvenuti nel mondo.
This is, yeah. Object for the church. Yes. A piece. Okay.
That's it. Thank you.